Welcome back to another video. HHIS has just released a new batch of the high income shares ETFs, and I'll go over some of the details and distribution information for all of these. I'm somewhat surprised about the initial distributions that have been announced, and seeing some of the yields has me possibly backtracking on the distribution ranges I've had in previous videos. This is mostly because with the release, they also provide the ex-dividend dates, which are going to be March 31st, with the payment date being on April 9th. But before we get into the rest of the video, if you enjoy this type of content and want to help with the channel, feel free to like and subscribe for future videos. Now let's get back to the announcement. So the new batch of high income shares ETFs are finally listed on the TSX and are now ready to join the rest of the HHIS lineup. These new funds will also be included into HHIS to help diversify and reduce some of the volatility, which we all experienced a lot of in this past month. It's also expected that these will all be equally weighted, so now with 14 holdings, each ETF within HHIS should be approximately 7.14% in allocation. Over time it may fluctuate as certain ones may perform better or worse, but there will likely be a rebalancing on a quarterly basis. And as mentioned earlier, they also announced the initial distributions for all of these new ETFs at the same time with the release. I think most of these are more or less what I had expected, with the exception of the MSTE distribution and maybe the Coinbase one. So for all these, based on a $12 inception price, we'll have the following yields. For Alphabet or Google, it'll be a 12-cent distribution or a 12% dividend yield. For AMD, it'll be a 20-cent distribution or a 20% dividend yield. For Broadcom, it'll be a 15-cent distribution or a 15% dividend yield. For the leveraged version of Coinbase, it'll be a 40-cent distribution or a 40% dividend yield. For Costco, it'll be a 10-cent distribution or a 10% dividend yield. For the leveraged version of Misty, it'll be a 60-cent distribution or a 60% dividend yield. Then finally for Netflix, it'll be a 14-cent distribution or a 14% dividend yield. So in previous videos, I put together a comparison of the minimum distributions and the initial distributions that were announced with the previous batch of ETFs, which I had assumed because of the discrepancy that the initial distributions might be 1.5 months worth of premiums. But with this newly released batch of ETFs, they'll only be around for just less than a month, starting from March 5th until March 31st. So if this is the case, then maybe we'll have to take the initial distributions from the previous batch of ETFs at face value as well. So if we put together the entire list of 14 ETFs within HHIS, this is what it currently looks like. For all of these, if you look in the prospectus, you can find the table for all the minimum distribution values. So putting those all together and taking the average, the minimum distribution should be approximately 14 cents. If we now list all the initial distributions together and taking the average, then that would come to 24 cents. When we then compare to what HHIS has listed as its minimum and initial distributions, which are 16 cents and 25 cents, it seems to have been slightly lowered with these new additions. But we have to keep in mind that the values for HHIS were before these new additions were added. So if we take out all the new additions and keep only the 9 holdings to take the average of those, we get values that are slightly higher than what they've listed for HHIS. Based on this then, the question would be if the values of HHIS will have to be revised to be lower now with all these new additions. I'm not going to make any guesses, but I'm just presenting the numbers for you to get an idea of things and the context of the numbers. Overall, if anything, these monthly variable distributions have kept a lot of us interested in these funds and watching to see how they perform in the long run. Hopefully all or most of our questions about the distributions will be answered on the next announcement, which will be in a few weeks' time from now. If those distributions remain the same or very close to the initial distributions, then we'll have an idea of how sustainable these yields are. If it starts to vary greatly and align more closer to the minimum distributions, then we'll know these initial ones are probably just a one-time anomaly. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and if you prefer some of these shorter types of videos going forward. And with that, like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you in the next video.